Good evening. Welcome to this candidate forum for the New York State's 90th Assembly District. My name is Susan Maggiato. I'm the president of the Rivertowns League of Women Voters. I'm very pleased to welcome our candidates, the incumbent, Nader, who is running on the Democratic line, and John Isaac, who is running on the Republican and Conservative line. Our timekeeper tonight is Alice McNamara, here in the front row, a member of the Rivertowns League and a resident of Sleepy Hollow, and she will be helping up signs for time. Our moderator is John Hessel, and in keeping with league policy, he is not a voter in the district. Mr. Hessel is a resident of New Rochelle and a member of the New Rochelle League. A word about the League of Women Voters. I'm sure you know the League is a voter service organization, and indeed we are. That's been our mission since our founding in 1920 after women got the right to vote. But we are also an advocacy group. We study issues and lobby our legislators on public policy issues on the local, state, and national level. So in that sense, we are political, but we are staunchly nonpartisan. That means that as a league, we never support or oppose candidates or political parties. The league is fully committed to ensure compliance in principle and in practice with our national diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. And finally, membership in the league is open to everyone 16 years of age or older. A word about a recording policy that both our candidates have agreed to. Only the entities authorized by the league may record or live stream this forum. Only licensed media, which includes TV, radio, and newspapers, are entitled by FCC regulations to air portions of the recording. Anyone else who broadcasts or streams this must do so in its entirety. This is to ensure that the content of the forum will not be manipulated in any way to create false or misleading impressions of any candidate. The forum will be recorded and available for later viewing on the League's YouTube channel, LWV Rivertowns, and the link will also be on our Rivertowns website, Facebook, and Instagram pages. There will be no audience participation tonight. The questions the candidates will be answering were submitted by the public ahead of time. The moderator has those questions, and they were reviewed by a committee of league members. And with that, I will turn the meeting over to Mr. Hessel.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm going to ask you, if you have your phone out, put it away. There's no recording. Okay. Yes, sir. They're working on it. That's all I can say. And this microphone doesn't have the necessary cord, so can you hear me if I speak?
Yeah.
Okay, so you may have to project from the diaphragm, as they say, as far as you can until you get the local help to give you a microphone. Okay? Okay. The microphone doesn't have a long enough thing. Okay, so let me go, and I have a really great microphone. I don't know.
John, they could possibly step up to the
Yeah, I guess so.
It's a little awkward.
Certainly for the opening, use a mic too.
It's a little open.
Or I don't know if you can have an extra mic.
Yeah, so we're just waiting for the Janet to return. He tried 2 mics, and now we've gone 2 other mics. I can't bring this microphone. So if you'd like to stand up and get the microphone, we can do that until they come up with a solution.
That would be the open and closing statement.
Right.
Yeah, maybe
Right.
we'll do that. And then the answers to the question you can give. And that's unfortunate. We just shared this. Okay. So, let's try this again. We have 2 candidates that are running for Assembly District 90. Here are the 2 candidates, Mr. John Isaac and Mr. Nader Sayegh. We flip the coin at the beginning for the order of the opening statement. Every candidate has 2 minutes for an opening statement. They have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. They have 2 minutes for a closing statement. And during the forum, each candidate gets 2 30-second rebuttals. And once they use them, there's no more. They can use them on any question. They can't use a rebuttal on an opening and closing statement. So as Susan had told us, all the questions have been submitted prior I guess you gathered them from the public. Let's see, we have our timekeeper there. Can you see the timekeeper? Okay, and she'll tell you in this. So there's no video recording. Turn off your cell phone so we don't have any interruptions. There's no applause or anything during the forum. There'll be plenty of time at the end of the forum. So, Mr. Sayegh,
Start.
you ready?
Ready. You have the floor. Thank you very much, and it's really a pleasure. First and foremost, I wanted to thank the League of Women Voters for the opportunity. You know, fortunately, we live in a democracy, and we have an opportunity to elect our representatives. And I often say, put party politics aside, put party labels aside, and vote for the individual who has the experience, the compassion, the commitment, and the results, especially if they've been in office. I've been fortunate to have been elected in Yonkers in November of 2018. And I've served as a former educator for many years, as an attorney, as someone that has committed many, many years to public service, volunteered, and have a proven track record. In Albany, my record of writing legislation and advocating for legislation is very clear. From protecting consumers, to protecting schools, to making sure that New York State changes the way we fund education, especially in Yonkers. These are commitments that I'm proud of. And as we go on through this night, I want you to keep in mind what is rhetoric, what is cheap talk, what is Republican playbook from Albany or from Washington, D.C., and focus on the results. When it comes to education, I have committed the efforts and the experience to understand, as a principal for 30 years, what it means when there's budget cuts, when we lose sports and music and art and library services and counselors and psychologists and social workers, and the negative impact that has on our children and our society. So as we go on, thank you.
Mr. Isaac? Stand back from the microphone.
Good evening. Many thanks to the League of Women Voters for supporting this forum, Assemblyman Nader for participating in this exchange of ideas, and to everyone here watching at home. My name is John Isaac, a family man and a businessman. Albany is currently in the hands of one party supermajority. Literally, every branch of government is controlled by progressive Democrats. And for 6 years, Nader has been a reliable rubber stamp for Andrea Stewart Cousins and Governor Hochul. He has never stood up for Yonkers family, not once. Did Nader speak for women and the girls when the Proposition 1 was introduced? No, he did not stand up for girls. He got out his rubber stamp and passed the bill. When Nader was elected, he promised to rebuild schools. Then the price tag was $2 billion. Nothing has happened, and the cost now has tripled. Where is the money to rebuild the Yonkers schools? Albany lawmakers, Mr. Sage, rubber stamped sanitary state laws and spent over million on hotels and cell phones for illegal immigrants in New York City. He did not stand for Younger's family for legal immigrants. Mr. Sayegh has passed the cashless bail law that put violent criminals on the street hours our brave law enforcement arrest them. Sayegh did not stand up for the Yonkers police. The Christmas of 2022, as the rising inflation made so difficult for the families in Yonkers, Sayegh himself gave a 30% raise. He could be count out. Tonight is a change happening. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I just suggest that you make sure to be back from the microphone because you sound very distorted if you're too close to it.
You're not using, then we can.
No, the one when you stand. I just want to be able to be able to hear everybody, and it was very hard on my ears.
Okay, stand up. Thank you. We're moving this whole thing over.
Great.
This is a great microphone. Now. So each of you sit.
Yep.
I want you to say testing 1, 2, 3 towards the microphone. Can I hear you?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Testing 1, 2.
Good.
Very good.
I don't need a mic. I'm going over here. Okay. So the first question is to you, Mr. Isaac. Tell me if you can't hear me. What are the most important challenges facing your district, and what makes you uniquely qualified to address?
The most important challenge that facing the District 90, the Yonkers, is primarily the inflation and the affordability of the housing. Second is the cashless laws has created numerous number of criminals in a revolving door situation. The law enforcement cannot implement their duties. The day they are arrested, they are back in the streets in 24 hours. And the third thing is that my opponent claims himself as a champion for school. We have been sending billions of dollars in revenues, taxes from the Empire State Casino, and the dollars that are coming back to Yonkers is minuscule. We have to make sure that the Albany is funding Yonkers schools properly. That's the 3 areas that I make sure that if I'm being elected, from the day one, I'll be championing for these efforts, because the Empire State Casino is sending out billions of dollars, and the foundation formula Mr. Sayegh has been talking about for the last 6 years hasn't been providing the required dollars for the education in Yonkers.
Okay, thank you. Same question to you, Mr. Sayegh.
If my opponent understood education and really studied the facts, he would understand that since I was elected in November of 2018, we have increased foundation aid to Yonkers, and we have increased the amount of funding by 30%. You're talking about $80 million more in foundation aid and $60 million more in what they call bullet aid that I was part of a delegation to provide. Recently, when the Yonkers school system was looking at layoffs, it was Nader Sayegh that initiated the funding to avoid layoffs. When you look at a 30% increase during my term, you would understand, John, that this is the educational advocate. When you look at who restored support services and sports and other functions that our kids need, it was Nader Sayegh. When you look at the legislation and you realize what is the driving force today that Albany is looking at changing the foundation aid formula so we can build more schools like the Sotomayor School that we had the Chief Justice here in Yonkers 3 weeks ago to open a brand new school. It was my legislation that is before the Senate and the Assembly that will change the funding.
Thank you, Mr. Sayegh. question starts with you, Ms. Sayegh, and then to you, Mr. Isaac. New Yorkers will be voting on Proposition 1, the Equal Rights Amendment, in the upcoming election. What about this proposition would you support, and what, if any, are the challenges this proposition may create? What is your stand on this proposal? Mr. Sayegh?
Proposition 1, in my opinion, is crucial because we have witnessed with ultra-conservative Supreme Court justices that are trying to ban a woman's right to choose and avoid and restrict and hinder individual and constitutional rights. Many of us, whether we're immigrants, we're long-standing citizens, we come to this country in the hope that we have the respect to be individuals that can practice their religion, their culture, their heritage, their gender, and we should allow us the opportunity to protect all New Yorkers with Proposition 1. So there may be some fear-mongering that we would take away girls' sports and we would this and that. The truth of the matter is Proposition 1 protects all of us and we should vote for it. Is there some areas of Proposition 1 that people will promote fear and say, Nader, Sayegh and the Democrats, by the way, anybody that knows me, I'm independent. And I fought against the governor, I fought against the majority leader when it was defunding police, when it was going against single zone neighborhoods. So if you study my record, you would realize there's practically no one in this Westchester delegation that is more independent than I am.
Thank you. Mr. Isaac?
Let me be clear. I stand firm opposing Proposition 1. Vote no to Proposition 1. It's improperly written. It is vague in language, dangerous. You have daughters. I have a daughter. Someday I have my granddaughter. If it allows biological males in the girls' sports, in the women's lockers, rooms, and the changing rooms. This is not anti-transition position. This is a proposition, girls, which is literally be making a change. In the presidential election year, bringing the Equal Rights Amendment, the rights for who we talking about here? We are not talking about any abortion rights or any of those in this proposition. It is just a vague and confusing for the people. If you will look at this, it will be opening a can of worms for the attorneys and legals in the people in the legal field to defend, and we will be opening up a whole lot of lawsuits in the years to come if this proposition will be passed. So I urge each and everybody to look into it and vote no on the proposition no, and I stand firmly on proposition no to say no to it.
Okay, thank you.
Rebuttal?
Yeah, sure, you get a rebuttal. 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. I have 5 daughters, and I may have my personal opinions when it comes to abortion, when it comes to other rights that individuals have, but nobody should take away those rights. And I strongly believe that when rhetoric and fear are incorporated into a political debate or a discussion that promotes maybe very vague, as John just said, very vague language, and that dictates whether you support or not, is really improper. So think hard.
Thank you. Okay. You ready for the next question? This one starts with you, Mr. Isaac. Finding affordable housing in the district is a serious problem for many people. What ideas do you have to create more affordable housing while also protecting both renters and landlords?
Affordable housing plan. It depends on the supply and demand. It should be a public-private partnership. Affordable housing plan is affordable for who? Especially in the city of Yonkers, each area has its own diversification. In the New York City, there is more than 40,000 empty units sitting in because the landlords are benefiting be keeping those units empty. In Yonkers, it's going to be different. We have seen plenty of high-rise buildings, but we need the housing that is affordable, and based on the increased taxes in every area, the affordability is a key issue that need to be addressed, that can only be addressed by lowering the taxes in every spectrum. In 2020, the Yonkers had an opportunity to sunset the income tax. What happened? The supermajority in Albany didn't act to sunset that law, which can carry for years. We don't know when that can be sunsetting. These are the reasons why the people cannot afford their first homes or any kind of a dwelling in Yonkers.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sayegh?
Yeah, on affordability, I mean, we want to raise our families in Yonkers, in New York. Cost has become spiral, and all of us appreciate the need to promote more affordable housing. I gotta say, the city of Yonkers took a lead where the last 10 years, the amount of units, nearly 2,000 affordable units have been built throughout the city of Yonkers. I, by the way, took a strong stand against the governor and demanded, while we promote affordable housing, it should not go into single zone neighborhoods. So I took that position and I stood against them, and the governor backed off because of mainly the advocacy I promoted. So while we support affordable housing, we should allow municipalities in Yonkers and Westchester and throughout the state to determine where we provide business incentives, and we make sure that we have units that are available for many professionals. We have Lionsgate, we have businesses development, we have MGM expanding. We need to make sure that those businesses and the employees have adequate housing.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, this one is going to start with you, Mr. Sayegh.
Okay?
Flooding is a big problem in Assembly District 90. What can be done as soon as possible to prevent future flood damage to homes and streets?
Thank you very much. You know, this flooding was a crucial issue that impacted all of the city, all of the state, because all of us realize there's climate change, there's issues environmental that have impacted, where years ago, every 20 years, 40 years, there was the storm of the century. Now we have storms of the century, almost 2, 3 of them a year. So we got to plan ahead. I have a 100% score from the New York League of Conservation Voters. We provided $8 million to the Sawmill Valley to make sure they clear it so all of North Yonkers doesn't get impacted. We recently put $1.3 million in the Armavilla, East Yonkers area, so they can work on addressing the flooding problems. Flooding is important. It's going to be a common issue. The funding should be allocated, and I've done that already.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Isaac?
The climate change is real. We have to address that. As the flooding, as we move forward, yes, we need to talk about what is causing the flooding, what are the reasons the flooding is happening. I don't have all the answers for that because you've been there 6 years addressing it, but I'm ready to listen to every aspect of the government to say that when the time comes, we need to be addressing the flooding as we move forward. Make sure that the tax dollars that we are collecting from Yonkers, from the casinos, are going to Albany. It should be coming back to fund the environment as well as every aspect of Yonkers, especially the schools, and make sure that flooding wouldn't continue. And this is not a once-in-a-lifetime event like Mr. Sayegh said. It is happening maybe 3 or 4 times a year, but we have to address with the proper way of making sure the Sawmill River Road as well as the Bronx River Parkway, Bronx River is being taken care and being removed the the dirt in there so the flooding can be reduced. Thank you.
Okay, very good. This is also about climate change. It's going to start with you, Mr. Isaac. What do you think would be the most, can you hear me? What do you think would be the most beneficial policies to address the changing environment and to mitigate the damage caused by this in New York State? What do you think would be the most beneficial policies to address the changing environment and to mitigate the damage caused by this changing environment in New York State?
The environment change is going on. This is not happening yesterday or day before yesterday. Since the evolution, it has been going on. We have to adapt to the changes. At the same time, the climate change is for real. We are talking about renewable energy, and we also have to make sure that whatever change is happening has to be having a proper plan in Albany, and what is it going to cost, and how is that going to be implemented for the residents of Yonkers. Is that going to be having a heavy taxing on the people of Yonkers? We don't want it to burden the Yonkers residents anymore with the taxes, because the Yonkers is the second city in New York State having the income tax in addition to New York State. No, I'm sorry, in addition to New York City. So any kind of changes cannot be imposed with taxing on the residents of Yonkers.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sayegh?
Yeah, well, as I stated earlier, it's an important topic. And I, in Albany, supported legislation like the 2019 Climate Act. We supported the Clean Water Infrastructure Act. We supported the Heat Act and the Build Public Renewable Act, along with the package and reduction. We passed legislation that limited the amount of plastics in our waterways. We passed green energy legislation. We passed renewable energy legislation. Our track record in New York State over the last 6 years since I'm in office to renew and address with real solutions has taken place. The legislation has been passed. The opportunities to get investors to invest in clean energy and green energy has taken place today because of the actions we undertook. So it's not lip service. So what I speak about is initiatives, it's legislation, it's actions that are taking place today that improve our energy climate, our dependability on foreign oil, and our ability to safeguard us, whether it's storms or hurricanes and other disasters.
Okay, thank you very much. This one's going to start with you, Mr. Sayegh.
Sure.
With the Supreme Court's recent ruling on New York's concealed carry laws, what do you see as the best path forward on gun safety? How would you address the safety issues caused by mass shootings and gun violence?
Well, that's a very good question, and really that's not a Republican-Democrat issue. All of us sitting in the room understand that we need to address school safety. We need to address crime. We need to address the safety of our students. As an educator, I would be devastated to have a person walk in with a gun and shoot our students. So we agree, and my party and my platform is to reduce the amount of guns. Does that mean taking away a gun from someone who lawfully has a right? No. Does that mean telling somebody you can't protect your home or your business? No. But it does mean when there's ghost guns and there's weapons that people now fabricate and they're easy and they're unlicensed, and people that have mental illness or tendencies to commit crime are allowed easily to get guns, then that's a no-no. So yes, we pass serious flag laws that permit law enforcement to crack down on illegal guns so we can deter the crime that takes place in our streets, in our schools.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Isaac?
Repeat that question.
Yes. With the Supreme Court's recent ruling on New York's concealed carry laws, what do you see as the best path forward on gun safety? How would you address the safety issues caused by mass shootings and gun violence?
I agree with Mr. Sayegh. Let me clear, New York has the toughest gun control law in the country. Law-abiding citizens or the person who has the gun is not the problem. It's sad that we have mass shooting in schools, in religious houses, or in the supermarkets. Illegal guns being smuggled into New York City and the suburbs like Yonkers is the reason for most of this mass shooting. What is mass shooting? If more than one person is being killed, is mass shooting. As we sit here, there could be a mass shooting happening in New York State every day or every other year, or every other day. Illegal guns being smuggled to the New York is the main reason why we are having this problem. Community engagement would reduce some of these problems. Also, as I said, the Democrats doesn't want to talk about the problem that is the young man killing young men in the states of New York is the main reason why we talk about the mass shooting, because that's not their cause to be taken up. They talk about gun control and the legal people owning the guns, and they make it stricter and stricter every year for the people to possess the guns in the state of New York.
Thank you, Mr. Isaac. Okay, this question is going to start with you, Mr. Isaac. Some have suggested that New York's foundation aid formula for school funding needs a complete overhaul. Do you believe the current formula supports a sound education for all New York students? What proposals would you make, if any, to improve support for schools? And what is your position on vouchers?
Mr. Sayegh says that he is an advocate for education. From 2 miles from here is the Empire City Casino. It is generating millions and millions of dollars for Albany, more than the combination of Mega Jackpot or Powerball combined. The New York Yonkers is supposed to be getting a fair share of those dollars for the schooling. Back in 2020, it was mentioned that in order to fix these schools in Yonkers, it requires more than $2 billion. Where is that money that has been budgeted? We haven't seen a dollar come to Yonkers. Why are we sending all these dollars to Albany to fund the illegal immigrants? The supermajority in Albany is funding your tax dollars more than $4.6 billion when the Yonkers schools are suffering. We don't have a proper graduation, even though my opponent claims that he's been a proponent of Young for the schooling, including Shirley Myers, who is a prominent person on the Education Committee in the Senate. The dollars yet to come here, the $2 billion is just to fix the infrastructure. If we need a better school for 2024, we need more dollars.
Thank you, Mr. Isaac. Can everybody please keep whatever comments they have to themselves? I don't want to hear them if I'm up here, okay? It's not fair to the candidates and the audience. Mr. Sayegh.
Yes, pleasure. As I said earlier, since I took office, foundation aid has been increased by $80 million. Special grants and bullet aid that we lobbied for was increased by $60 million. When my opponent attacks the Yonkers schools and doesn't realize that Yonkers has a 90% graduation rate, one of the highest percent in the entire state. And when Yonkers is shortchanged with funding, as I said earlier, John, it was Nader Sayegh, and the main legislation in Albany to change the funding formula is my legislation, where the state realized, so presently, as we are here tonight, New York State has a Regents Commission called the Rockefeller Institute, that is studying the funding formula. And you know whose legislation they're using? Nader Sayegh legislation that looks at the number of special ed kids, number of English language learners, the number of kids on free and reduced lunch. Right now, Yonkers funding to build schools during my term was increased from 50% to 75%. And my goal is to make sure we can build more schools, we can compete with the other institutions and make sure that our kids continue to grow. So anybody that bashes our schools, bashes our city, doesn't know what they're talking about.
Would you like the rebuttal?
Yes.
You can take your rebuttal. Each of you have one rebuttal left, 30 seconds.
I wanted to say that, yes, he claims that he is a champion. I wanted to ask you, the graduates from the Yonkers, they have to go to the community college to get into one of the colleges if they had to excel their career. Also, when you say that you have ruffled some feathers, can you just show these people of Yonkers that you did that to bring these dollars back to Yonkers? As I mentioned, there have been tons of money being sent up to Albany, but we are getting only pennies for dollars sent up there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okay. Question number 8 starts with you, Mr. Sage. New York has an opportunity to protect its residents from harmful chemicals by passing the Packaging Reduction Bill, which last session had enough co-sponsors in both houses to pass but was never brought to the floor. Will you support this bill and work to have it come to a vote, the Packaging Reduction Bill?
Yes, as I said earlier, among my many initiatives with clean energy, with climate control, the packaging bill voted for it. I believe that this session it would have a good chance to pass. There's always people that are objecting to any initiative, either supported by big business or looking to deter positive action. And unfortunately, my opponent and the party he represents, whether from Albany or DC, has taken strong initiatives against these type of programs. I believe this year the governor and the state and the assembly have the will and the determination and enough sponsors to put it before the assembly and senate and have the governor sign it into law.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Isaac.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah. New York has an opportunity to protect its residents from harmful chemicals by passing the Packaging Reduction Bill, which last session had enough co-sponsors in both houses to pass, but was never brought to the floor. Will you support this bill and work to have it come to a vote?
If both houses has passed, the supermajority could do anything they want in Albany. That's what I'm fighting against. Whose interest is Nader State and the supermajority is looking for? Are they looking for the interest of the Yonkers residents and the residents of Westchester and the state of New York? Or they're looking at the interest of the firms or the corporations that make these kind of chemicals? Here, we got to make sure that this chemicals doesn't pollute our environment. It is key to make sure that we have a clean air and clean water, which is a gift that we all have to enjoy, regardless of whether it's Republican or Democrat or independent, should be enjoyed. If I'm going to be elected, I got to be looking into these plans and also wanted to make sure that what is in this plan, how much it's going to cost. That's where many times the supermajority doesn't look into what entails is the cost for any kind of plans they put in forward and passes the bill. That need to be put stop, and we wanted to put the people first as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. Just say, hold on, I'm looking at my little notes here. I'm a little ahead of myself. Okay, here's our next question. This is to you, Mr. Isaac. There is a shortage of housing options for adults with physical disabilities who do not have cognitive impairments. How would you address this issue?
the housing for the seniors and for those who have the disability has to be addressed. They are part of our community. That's where I was mentioning about the public-private partnership. We have seen hundreds and hundreds of dwellings going in Yonkers. With the support from the Albany and the city of Yonkers has to put together the plan to make sure that their needs are addressed. Without that, how can we be a law-abiding and a just citizens for these people who are less fortunate to have these benefits for this community? As we move forward, we have to make sure everybody, regardless of whether they're able or disabled, have the affordability to having the housing, also affordability to everywhere they need to be. That's one of the things that I will be championing. And moreover, we have to make sure what laws are currently available, make sure that will be implemented in the city of Yonkers, and maybe some of them might have been implemented, but if it is not adequate, we got to increase it with the dollars of taxes that we're sending into Albany. We have to get those fair share coming back to have these people taken care in the city of Yonkers.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sayegh?
Yes, I'm a proud member of the committee in the Assembly on Students with Disabilities, have encouraged the Mayor's Advisory on People with Disabilities. Last week we had a major flag raising ceremony at City Hall honoring and encouraging legislation that I've supported and passed that addresses handicap accessibility, employment opportunities, affordable housing, and we've initiated legislation where developers that build in Yonkers or throughout New York State must have a certain amount of apartments or units for people with disabilities or people that address and meet the affordable criteria. So I'm a big advocate. We continue to advocate, and it's crucially and very importantly, recently the governor signed my legislation that Westchester County Executive George Latimer pushed for, Gaudium ad litem, protecting seniors and disabled individuals that are before the court system so that their rights are protected, because very often they're lost when they go to court without proper legislation. This is real action.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sayegh. Okay, this one starts with you. There's a New York State pilot program for an AI speaker to help homebound seniors in emergencies. What other programs would you promote to help seniors age in place comfortably and safely?
Well, I think Governor Hochul recently initiated numerous initiatives, that the state legislative body supports. One of them is to make sure that New York State presently has a strong research initiative dealing with AI to protect our students. Moving forward, AI is very new to all of us. We promote technology. We want innovation. We want our children, our schools to utilize the technology, but it needs to be coordinated. We need to train our teachers. We need to make sure there's safeguards so that the internet and social media doesn't hinder us. So we're moving in the right direction on addressing AI, addressing the growth, and making sure we can properly monitor that growth so it doesn't impact our kids in a negative way.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sayegh. Mr. Isaac, there is a New York State pilot program for an AI speaker to help homebound seniors in emergencies. What other programs would you promote to help seniors age in place comfortably and safely?
Well, the AI shouldn't be just for seniors. The AI should be for across the board. That's where we have to start the implementation of artificial intelligence right in the school level, in the college level, and every level that we can think about. It's a new technology, and it can be made use if it is used in the right and the proper way. How that can be utilized just for the seniors, that need to be studied. The problem with the Albany is that they have a plan which has no clarity. They just put out the plan without looking into how much it's going to cost and who is going to be impacted with it. If I'm going to be elected, I'm going to make sure that why we have 2 years is to listen everybody's ideas and has to be implemented properly. AI is new to everybody. It can reshape not only the seniors, it can reshape each and every one of you are sitting here, our current generation and the future generation to come in. So we embrace that and take advantage of it like every developed nation is taking advantage of AI. We should implement AI, not just in Yonkers. It should be properly implemented throughout the New York State.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Isaac, this question starts with you. Would you support or co-sponsor legislation to offer reduced fare bus tickets to people at or below the poverty line who need supplemental assistance for public transportation, including going to work, child care, medical appointments, etc.?
Why not? We should be taking care of the less fortunate people within ourselves. There are different programs within the system. The Yonkers City, the County of Westchester, and the New York State has the funds. We are paying millions and millions of dollars in taxes, and the entitlement program is already there. And with the food stamp, as well as the various transportation program, why can we not fund those who need it to have a discount or free ride on the B lines? Those are the things that we should be providing, because in order to get from A to B, not everybody is fortunate to have a car or an automobile in today's world, because that's not only just costing the gas, it is costing the insurance, and also less car on the streets is better. So I do promote, but we got to look at the plan and we got to make sure what is it going to be costing this plan to be implemented. That's how it can be made implemented for the benefit of this particular plan that you are asking me.
Okay. Mr. Sayegh?
Yeah, over the years as an educator, as a president of the Board of Education, we initiated programs that allowed the B line that serves Yonkers and Westchester to provide bus passes to our students, especially our seniors. After 8th grade, many students had a very difficult time going to schools. We have programs we've initiated that have discounts for seniors. I voted for legislation that initiated free bus rides in New York City to assist with neighborhoods that were heavily disadvantaged. And it promoted job development, job readiness. It allowed students to go to schools, to high schools and colleges, and really allowed more productivity. So I do support, we have supported, will continue to support initiatives to address transportation needs and the impact they have on schools, on employment, on quality of life.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Sayegh, this one starts with you. A medical aid in dying euthanasia bill was introduced a decade ago, but has yet to reach the floor for a vote. What is your position on this bill?
I'm a co-sponsor of the bill, and I'm someone that will tell you I value life and I would fight the darnest to protect life, but if somebody is severely ill and there's no chance whatsoever, then I myself feel, and I've experienced it with loved ones that were on their deathbeds, that were suffering, and the amount of suffering that they had to go through and their loved ones and family was so severe that there's a point in time when someone has mental illness clearance and has medical clearance and multi-levels of protection to make sure that they're not just committing suicide and taking their life, then at that point it should be made available. So I do support it. It's legislation that is before the Assembly and Senate, and it may come to the floor this coming session.
Okay, Mr. Isaac?
I strongly oppose that. Why? Because God has given one life, and the God is the only one can take that from us. If euthanasia is being put into voting, I would say that this could be the only reason that Nader State shouldn't be elected as the assemblyman and sent to Albany come November 7th. Why? It can be misrepresented for every different reason. Why my parents or my grandparents should be put into suffering if I or my family can take care of them? Why they should be a burden? It can be utilized in every different way to be putting an end to not being a burden to the family. We can look into different ways to support them, and also it is not a civilized community or a civilized world role to put anybody who is being suffering, whether it is mental, it should be treated. If it is for aging situation, it can have all kind of can of worms coming out. Why would we open up that kind of a situation? If a bill being passed, we don't know what the consequences is going to happen and the years to come. I don't want it to be a part of that. You shouldn't be part of that, and we shouldn't be sending Nader State to Albany to sign that bill.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Isaac, this question starts with you, and we only have 2 questions left. The MTA is losing revenue due to fare beating in New York City by the MTA's estimate, $690 million in 2023. Congestion pricing is on an indefinite pause. What can be done to shore up the MTA and address the fare beating issue?
The fare beating issue is not a MTA problem. It is the problem because the cashless bail has been implemented, and also when the law enforcement put those criminals behind the bar, it's a revolving door. They come out within 24 hours back into the streets. That is why the cashless bail has to be repealed, and I'm going to be working on that from the day one, because not only our law enforcement officers, the judges, everybody wants to see that ended. The second part is that why in the world are we sending $4.6 billion to the illegal immigrants? Me and Sayegh came to this country legally, legal immigrants. Majority of you sitting here came to this country legally. But $4.6 billion of your tax dollar bill is being sent for sheltering, cell phones, and for debit cards for illegal immigrants. We can use those dollars to make this infrastructure or the MTA in the 2024. We don't need that additional burden of taxing the Yonkers residents with this additional taxation on the toll. Come after this election, this is going to come back and Nader State is going to support it again. Can you say that you won't support, or you would say what is your stand on that? Please do that.
Okay, Mr. Sayegh, it's your...
Well, the question was MTA, and we get into immigration, we get into the rhetoric and the fear, and we get into bail reform. I hope there's other questions we can focus on that. But MTA, should improve the trains. They should improve the transportation system. We have initiated funding and legislation to make sure those lines go up all the way to Rockland and to Orange County. Make sure they go throughout Westchester, where transportation becomes more feasible. People can be held accountable if they try to evade the fares. And yes, I've been a strong advocate of law enforcement, was completely endorsed by every law enforcement agency, from Yonkers Police to county to state police to correction officers. There must be a reason, John, that every law enforcement agency agrees that Nader Sayegh has worked to keep criminals away, that's worked hard to make sure we protect law enforcement and the judicial system and bail reform. and you talk about immigrants, Yonkers has 90 immigrants at the Ramada end. If you talk about immigrant as a big fear, you should really run in New York City in some districts where there's a massive amount. We have already initiated
Thank you.
legal action.
Thank you. Oh, you have a rebuttal, yes, go right ahead.
Yes, he did mention about the line going through the Yonkers, but we got to make sure that it is a right plan with what it's going to cost. That's where the problem comes when Albany puts out certain things, they don't have a proper plan and they don't know what it's going to be costing. That has to be ended. The second part I want to say is that, yes, we want to make sure that these things has to be in the right perspective.
Thank you. Okay, so here's your last question. Mr. Sayegh, it starts with you. How would you address the issue of highly charged political rhetoric that may be discouraging civic participation? What would you do to energize younger voters to engage in the political process?
Good question. Yes, we're a nation that the last decade, unfortunately, we've witnessed so much polarization, so much division. For many years, my involvement, when political candidates ran for office, the winner and the loser met, they congratulated each other, wished each other the best. Now it's at the level where people hate each other. The rhetoric of party politics is ridiculous. I encourage more individuals to run on their record, to run on the issues, to look at what their local issues are. We sponsored and passed legislation where students that are 17 years old now can register to vote. We promoted voter reforms that allows early voting. Next Saturday, you can go out 10 days before and go vote. We encourage where absentee ballot is unlimited, where college kids and people that are ill, no one has an opportunity to say, I can't vote, I wasn't given time, or I have a difficulty. Yes, we need more initiatives. We've initiated, and I'll continue to lobby and fight hard for voter reforms and for making sure our high school kids, legislation we already sponsored that will encourage children in high schools with more civic responsibility, with awareness programs that allows them to go ahead.
Mr. Isaac?
Yes, we have to see more youngsters and young generation come forward into the politics. Why hasn't that happened is for the simple reason that the seniors has to be grooming youngsters to come forward. The environment or the climate is not right, maybe not, maybe yes, but we got to be making sure that has to be the right climate. Mr. Sayegh has mentioned previously that he has got the endorsement of all the law enforcement agencies in and around the Westchester and in Yonkers. Let me just rephrase that. When I've been elected and come 2 years from now in this situation, yes, I will be having the same endorsement from those law enforcement officers because they see that I'm being the champion for them. Going back, yes, the youngsters and these people has to be come forward. Why they are not interested is for the simple reason is that the agendas is being literally not in their forefront. It is hard to see that they are moving away and away from this process of electing officials and in the democratic process. The great nation on the world, on the face of the earth, why the election process is such a low number. Where I come from, it has one of the largest democracy in the world, and it has to be changed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Isaac. So now it's time for our closing statements. We go in the reverse order of the opening statements. So, Mr. Isaac, you have the first closing statement. 2 minutes.
Thank you. This is perhaps the most important race involving Yonkers in years. The 90th Assembly District is the only race completely within Yonkers. The future of Yonkers schools, our infrastructure, our economy, and the safety of our neighborhoods all are on the line. It's time for a change. Sayegh has supported the progressive legislation and policies that have made New York less safe, more expensive, and less livable. He has voted for tens of billions in new taxes and imposed thousands of regulations on business. I'm a small business person. I know how it is impacting the small business. If you believe the job of assemblyman to raise taxes and give riches to illegal immigrants, ignore our roads, set criminals free, and let Albany continue to rob from Yonkers, yes, the Nader is your guy. If you think it was okay for Nader to vote this primary, raising his salary 30% during the 2022 Christmas season, when majority of the Yonkers was struggling to meet their end means, then he earned your vote. Nader's Sayegh experiment has failed Yonkers, and it's time for a change. It is your honor from me to earn your vote. I will always put Yonkers family first. I will always vote against new taxes, fight to fully fund Yonkers schools. I will always support law enforcement and put first responders to keep your and my family safe. I always stand up for the safety and the privacy of women and girls. It's time for a change. Why? Everyone wins with Isaac. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sayegh?
If you don't mind. Thank you very much. And as you saw, my opponent, who's been in Yonkers 15 years, I haven't heard of any volunteer role in any civic, any youth organization, any senior. And as you see, he has a playbook that he has to read, and he has to see what the Republicans on the state and national level, immigrants and bail reform and women's sports and girls' sports. It's a lot of rhetoric. It's a lot of fear. Your role as voters is to look at experience, look at results. I don't want to say he's misinformed, and I hate to say somebody's lying, but when you say Nader Sayegh, hasn't committed, or Nader Sayegh increased taxes, I don't know where you get your facts from, but we kept taxes in Westchester and Yonkers and at the state level at a minimum. Taxes were not increased. Funding to education was increased dramatically, to hospitals, to mental illness, to support services, to senior programs, and the list goes on and on, to address funding for flooding problems across our city. Recently brought $1 million to the PAL, Police Athletic League, to address our students and our services. $1 million to the Methadone Center, $1.3 million to flooding, $8 million to flooding, $5 million that I personally initiated to avoid layoffs in the Yonkers schools. So I don't want to hear ridiculous jargon and fear-mongering. Get your facts straight. Thank you very much.
That's the end of the forum. Thank you for your outburst. Early voting begins Saturday, October 26th. It's November 5th, of course, the election. It takes a lot for a person to come up here and put themselves in front of everyone, whether, whichever side, doesn't matter. But that takes a lot, so you should give both candidates. I would say thanks to the library, but I'm not sure.
Good job.